and service members. We have a short-term funding bill ready for the president to sign, but Democrats are standing in the way. Democrats are endangering our national security, our veterans, and our children. The insurance of 9 million children is at risk because CHIP would not be reauthorized. Mr. Speaker, it appears as though the Democrats want to take away attention from the wonderful economy we have. We need to pass this bill and move on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oregon seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman from Oregon is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today's the first anniversary of complete Republican control of our government, the President, the Senate, the House. When they wanted to deliver their tax plan, the largest transfer of wealth to the richest Americans, they could move with lightning speed. Bipartisanship, Democrats were completely shut out. Although, to be fair, Republicans didn't even know what they were voting on. Dreamers weren't here illegally until Donald Trump ended the DACA program. If the Republicans had the courage to allow bipartisan legislation on the floor to fix this problem, it would pass overwhelmingly. The Republicans had known for months that the important and popular CHIP program would end this fall. If they would allow the reauthorization on the floor, it would pass with 400 votes and save us $6 billion over the next 10 years. Republicans could choose their complete control of government to govern. And if they can't agree amongst themselves and want our help, then work with us. But don't hold the American public and their government hostage to your most extreme members and their radical ideas.
Gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for American families that today marks the first year of the presidency of Donald Trump. We can rejoice in his successes of promoting peace through strength abroad and economic opportunity at home, that America is being restored as a beacon of freedom and liberty. ISIS is now really being defeated with his call for victory supporting our military. The economy is booming with jobs and skyrocketing stock markets. His dedication for all Americans is clear, as African American unemployment is at a 17-year low, Latino employment at a record low. The Democrat response has been mean-spirited obstructionism of resistance. Last month, Senate Democrats opposed the tax cuts, which clearly benefit workers, and now last night, Senate Democrats shut down the government in an ugly effort to smear the president while distracting the American people from the president's achievements on his anniversary. I've just learned, in fact, that Senate Democrats are closing National Guard armories across our state today at noon, putting our military readiness and troops at risk. I am confident that with the positive leadership of Speaker Paul Ryan, that House Republicans will continue to be the adults in the room for American families. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we will never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism. Thank you, President Trump, for your heartfelt address to the historic Right to Work, or Right to Life march yesterday on the Mall.
Gentleman's time has expired. What purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition? Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we're about 9 hours into the Schumer shutdown, which is basically the Senate Democrats holding the United States, 320 million people, hostage over an executive order made by President Obama to benefit 690,000 people here illegally. The DACA program. The DACA program has nothing to do with funding the government for the next 4 weeks. There's plenty of time to continue to address the conversation on DACA, which is going underway, bipartisan basis, for something that's due in 2 months. President Trump rightly decided to rescind what was done by a previous executive order so we can abide by the law and put a good law in place that addresses border security, chain migration, and what to do with those here illegally that there's a lot of sympathy for across this country with those minors that are here under DACA. Mr. Speaker, it's time we get back to work and put this country to work again and have not hold 320 million Americans ransom in order to do this for a handful of illegal immigrants in this country. We need to get back to work, reopen the government, so we're not shutting down the CHIP program we passed, the National Guard, etc. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. What purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
The House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, last November, more than 2 months ago, this House passed the reauthorization for the Children's Health Insurance Program known as CHIP. The House again passed the reauthorization for CHIP this week, but last night, in addition to voting no on CHIP, Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats voted no on keeping the government funded, and here we are. The funding Senate Democrats rejected last night includes funding for our nation's service members, tens of thousands of whom are deployed throughout the Middle East, Pacific, and Korea. They could have voted yes to the families waiting for the Children's Health Insurance Program and yes to our troops, but they did not. There is no excuse for this. The issues of deferred action for childhood arrivals and securing our border are being negotiated separate and apart from this funding bill and CHIP, and there are serious proposals to address these issues. I urge Senate Democrats to change course, end the Schumer shutdown, and do what is right for the American people, pass the government funding and Children's Health Insurance Program that we sent over days ago. I thank the Speaker and I yield back.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in great frustration with the partisanship that is being shown about a bipartisan program to help children and about keeping our government open. The Children's Health Insurance Program provides affordable and comprehensive medical coverage for children under 19 whose families do not qualify for Medicaid but cannot access insurance through a private plan. Thousands of my constituents rely on this program, and we are trying to reauthorize it for 6 years, the longest in the program's history. Mr. Speaker, there is nothing controversial about CHIP. Keeping the government open is a fundamental responsibility of Congress, and a government shutdown is irresponsible and unproductive. We must provide certainty to service members and federal workers who rely on a functioning government to support their families. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues, particularly those on the other side of the aisle, to prevail upon Senate Democrats to open the government up. We can continue these important policy discussions with an open government. I yield back.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek? Without objection, the gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 1 minute.
The Trump travesty continues, as it has for the last 12 months. We have heard our colleagues on the other side of the aisle talk about the Children's Health Insurance Program. They are very concerned about its passage. Bring it to the floor. It will pass, and I guarantee you it will pass the Senate. Your Speaker, our Speaker, said, and I quote, "We will advance major legislation one issue at a time." That is not what the bill you put on this floor did. It is not what the bill that's on the Senate floor did. You are right. There is no controversy. Government should not be shutting down. It is the Trump confrontation and chaos that continues. That is why this government is shut down. And the American people are rightfully upset with every one of us. Not just Republicans, not just Democrats. They're upset that their government is not working. Mr. Speaker, bring these issues one at a time to this floor, and they will pass, and some will not.
Gentleman's time has expired.
And my time has expired.
Gentleman's time has expired.
But the people's time is expiring. Let us do our work. One issue
Gentleman's time
at
has
a
expired.
time.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman, the minority leader, seek recognition? Gentleman from California. Without objection, the gentlewoman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last night, on the eve of the first anniversary of President Trump's inauguration, President Trump earned an F for leadership. President Trump and congressional Republicans' obsession with passing a tax scam to benefit the wealthiest in our country and corporations has blinded them to their responsibilities to the American people. Despite controlling the House, the Senate, and the White House, the Republicans were so incompetent, so negligent that they couldn't get it together to keep government open. They could get it together to pass a tax credit, 83% of which benefits the top 1%, but they couldn't get it together to pass CHIP in its fuller complement of what it needs to meet the needs of America's children and families and seniors. President Trump said about President Obama at the time of the 2013 GOP government shutdown, the problem, this is, quote, President Trump, the problem starts from the top and have to get solved, he said have to get solved from the top. The president is the leader, and he's got to get everybody in a room. He's got to lead. President Trump then. President Trump now, as president, President Trump tweets, "Our country needs a good shutdown." Your wish has come true for your one-year anniversary because of all-round incompetence, inefficiency, and prioritizing with all your hearts and soul that 1% at the expense of the rest of the country. Now, President, there's no such thing, as we know, as a good shutdown of government. Republicans' total inability to govern is once again threatening our economy, weakening our communities, and dangerously depriving the military of the certainty they need to keep our nation safe. I say the economy because a shutdown hurts the economy. The facts are there from their previous shutdown. I'm proud that House and Senate Democrats' unity is insisting on a budget that supports our military and the domestic investments that keep our nation strong and honors our values by protecting our dreamers. I hope that we can now conduct bipartisan negotiations in a transparent way that unify the country, where we can find common ground to honor our responsibility to meet the needs of the American people. It's important to note that this is the 5th Republican shutdown. They don't believe in governance, so shutting down government is sort of a means to an end for them. And I just want to note that in 2013, when the Republicans last shut down government, it's really important that 231 Republicans voted to shut down government, 2-0 on their side. 231. And that included Speaker Ryan, Leader McCarthy, Whip Scalise, Chairwoman McMorris Rogers. Later, in October 16th, when it was time to open up government, it was just a kind of a remarkable thing. I said 231, it was 229. Let me be fair, 229. When it was time to open up government, it was remarkable because the Republicans still did not want to do that. On October 16th, 144 Republicans voted to keep government shut down. 144. 198 Democrats voted to open up government. 2-0. Nobody voted to keep government shut down. And so it's like, what is this? What are they talking about here? Do people not think that people have a record to see what their votes have been? This is their 5th shutdown since the 90s. This is their 4th CR since September. Get it together. Wipe the tears of joy from your eye about passing a tax cut that benefits the wealthiest in our country. Get down to business for everyday people in America. And stop using children as a shield to cover up what you are not doing for the American people. When we had the majority, when the first bills, and President Obama was president, when the first bills we sent to his desk was CHIP. This has always been our priority, but it must be accompanied by legislation to support community health centers, which serve 27 million Americans, including those CHIP kids. Medical education for primary care doctors who serve the needs of those children. Medicare extenders. The list goes on and on of what that package is, but what the Republicans did not want to pay for in their ill-founded CR that they put forth. CR weakens government. CR weakens our national defense. Secretary Mathis has said that over and over. This action shuts down government. The CRs debilitate government. Let's get serious, get it together, stop romancing yourselves about that tax bill, and start getting serious about meeting the needs of the American people. I yield back.
Gentlewoman from California yields back the balance of her time. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the Chair.